MAGA supporting farmers are whining that the USAID is withholding funds for farmers for conservation programs. The farmers are learning that their conservation payments are frozen because those contracts were funded through the Inflation Reduction Act. You know that thing that they hated that Biden got passed? Oh, but y'all benefited from that, huh? Skylar Holden is a cattle producer in eastern Missouri. You know, the state that voted for Donald Trump over Vice President Kamala Harris. He shared his story, his whining, crying story on TikTok.
I need your help to save my farm and many other farms. I wanted to give you guys an update on what we figured out with our contract through NRCS. So to give you some backstory, if you haven't watched the previous video, please go out, watch that previous video I've got on there. We are possibly going to lose our farm if NRCS doesn't hold up their contract with us on the EQIP program. So the reason that they're not able to hold up the contract is our EQIP program, which is cost sharing on fences, waters, a well, and some seedings, was funded by the Inflation Reduction Act. Because of the executive orders, there's a pause or a freeze on the funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're not able to pay out on the stuff that we completed or anything going forward. But the issue I have is I've already done a bunch of the work, already paid for the material, already paid for the labor, so I'm out all that cost, and I use my farm operating expenses in order to do those projects, because per contract, I knew that I was going to get cost sharing refunds on the stuff once completed, but now that it's completed, they're saying that they're unable to provide the funds because of the freeze on the Inflation Reduction Act funds. So I reached out to a couple different senators and Congress people. So I reached out to Ann Wagner's office. I have not heard back from them. I reached out to Josh Hawley's office. I have heard back from him. Not from him personally, but from his office. And they are looking into it because they said that this should not be happening. The intention was not to take away the funding from the farmers, but doing the Inflation Reduction Act, cutting those costs, then it's also taken away from the programs that those programs helped out. So it's in the works, but what I need from you guys is if you could please share this, tag your representatives, tag your senators. I need to get some ground on this because I'm not the only one this is affecting. So there are other farmers in the comments saying that they're in the same boat that I'm in because they signed these contracts, and the contracts, even like, so whenever I looked into the contract, I made sure that that funding was set aside. It wasn't funding that, oh, we hope it's there whenever it's done. I made sure that that funding was set aside so that way before I made these business decisions, I knew that funding was there per contract. So they're backing out on the contract because they don't have the funding. They can't release the funds. So please tag the representatives. Please tag the senators. I need to get some ground on this. We need to help me and other farmers out. We've got to get this funding paid out. I don't care if they don't do it in the future. The problem is there was contracts in place. Multiple farms made business decisions, and multiple farms are going to sink if we don't get traction on this and get those funds unfrozen.
You're wrong for that, Roman.
I'm just broken apart that, you know, he did all of this work and he's not getting his money. And I'm just torn apart that, you know, he called his senator, Josh Hawley, to help him out of this, and I guess I'm really sad by this because if you go to my iPad, these are the people who voted for and against the Inflation Reduction Act. All Democrats voted for it. All Republicans voted against it. And if I go down here over to the H's, what will you see right there? Hawley, Republican, Missouri, voted No. So the person you're crying to didn't vote for the very program that's funding you right now. This is what happens when y'all F around and find out. So I keep telling y'all, the only thing I have for you is Scarface's No Tears. Tommy, I don't feel sorry for any of these people.
Yeah.
Will I feel sorry if he loses his farm? No, I won't.
Well, listen, I just want to say three things right now. Number one, bro, too long, did not read. Number two, is there a funding freeze on tiny ass violins? And number three, I thought it was really interesting the way all of a sudden he forgot the name of the person who signed all those executive orders with all very passive voice, like these executive orders got signed, and I don't know how that happened. You know, the humana. It was Trump that did that to you, buddy. But I'm, look. I'm not going to delight in somebody else's misery. And plus,
no.
All that.
No. Hey, I'm sorry. And I know everybody, folk they've been asking me, Roland, please stop cussing. So I ain't going to use the 4-letter word I really want to use. But damn that. I will delight in their pain. Do you know why? Because they're delighting in the pain of poor people. They're delighting in the pain of migrants. They're delighting in the pain of black people. These are the people who are cheering DEI. These are the people who cheered the January 6th domestic terrorists. These are the people who constantly vote against their economic interest, and then they whine and complain, oh my God, I can't believe this. These are the idiots who go, I can't stand Obamacare, but please don't take my Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, basically, I just don't want my mom to call me home, for glorying in somebody else's misery. But like, you're absolutely right.
My dad won't send me a text shortly saying, keep giving them hell, son. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, it makes me want to shake them more than anything else. There was also been a lot of these headlines about people who literally, there's one lady who was on stage with Trump, and now she's like, oh, I can't believe that he's doing all this deportation.
That was a Venezuelan woman. We showed her last week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to laugh at him, but I want to, like, here's the thing, like they're playing in your face because Trump and his people will say, we didn't hide any of this. We said we were going to do all this.
Julian, I'm laughing in their faces.
Me too, Roland. Me too. I mean,
I'm petty like that.
I'm not petty. Well, maybe
I am.
But these people are getting what they voted for. If they didn't know, he told them what he was going to do. Not only he tell it to them, he also detailed it. He and his minions detailed it in Project 2025. And then he says, oh, no, that has nothing to do with me. Now, look at the blueprint. Look at who he put in charge of OMB. Look at who will be stopping money from moving if they have their way. So, that little man talking about his farm, you know what, you and your farm, too, is how I feel about it. I don't feel sorry. At the end of the day, these are people who revel in deportations. They revel in all the things that are happening bad. And then they didn't understand. We're all intertwined in this country. Bad stuff that happens to black folks is going to happen to you too. If you work for the federal government and you voted for that man, just watch what's going to happen. And we could go down the list and talk about all these things. I know a white lady who lives in my neighborhood who has a disabled child. She voted for that man. And now she asked me, I went outside today for something, and she said, do you think that they're going to cut the funding for disabled children? I said, what do you think? And I said, look, I told you not to talk to me because it never turns out right. I don't try to cuss, but sometimes it just happens, like spontaneous eruption. So the last time the lady said something to me, one of my neighbors, she said, you so cold. I said, just tell her not to talk to me, and we'll have no problems. I'll say hello from across the street. Hi, how you doing? But she's wondering, is disabled child stuff going to be cut? Yes, it's going to be cut, lady. I don't understand what did these people think? He was going to carve out and say, well, we're going to cut this, except for the white people. We're going to cut this.
Yes. No, that is what they thought. I'm a Congo. That's literally what they thought. Even these nutcase Latinos, what are you doing? You weren't supposed to take my wife. You're supposed to take them. No, her too.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. People say this is not what they voted for, blah, blah, blah. This is what they voted for, just not for them. They just thought it was not going to affect them in some way, shape, or form. And what the guy what I saw that proved that point even more when the farmer was talking was he said something towards the end of, after this, they can do whatever. But he was basically like, let those of us who made our money and paid for our equipment already, call them so we can get paid. After that, whatever happens, happens. And again, that shows the selfishness of so many of these individuals who thought that this stuff was not going to come for them. But the other part of this is going to be interesting is that, remember in 2018 when the whole thing happened with the farmers and the soybeans and stuff, and it was all those billions of dollars cut to save for them, many of those farmers, rather than blaming Trump, they looked at him as their savior. And they said Trump came in. And so even these guys who are struggling now, if Trump reverses something or, Holly gets an exemption for these particular people, they're going to say Trump saved us, as opposed to looking at Trump as the person who made this happen. And so for some reason, Trump with these particular guys who he has a hold on, he keeps winning with them, because even though he's beating them down, just like he's beating other people down, if he can come in and show that he's the savior, they're still going to ride with him. And that's why these guys, if they're really mad, then they're going to get politically active and not beg people like Holly, but challenge them to actually get out there and fight. But many of them are not doing that. They're just begging for help for themselves.
Let me be perfectly clear. I'm going to say it again. And I told y'all, I told you, Tommy. My daddy said, that's right, son. Give them hell for what they created. I told you. I mean, I do not, all of these people who are falling for the okie doke, they're getting played. I don't feel sorry for them. I understand pain, but my deal is, we told you for a year we told you for 3 years what Project 2025 was. We told you, and they told you what they were going to do. But these people, they effed around and they found that, and now they're finding out, and hashtag we tried to tell you.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
In tonight's edition of the Crockett Chronicles, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett lets it be known to MAGA that if you're questioning the Democrats, it's time to face the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just in case I go over, I just wanted to note that the previous speaker went over by a minute. We've heard a lot about the fact that Democrats have been talking about Elon Musk. And let me give you a news alert. We're not going to stop talking about him. We're going to keep talking about him until he is out of here. Now, if he wants to be elected or appointed and confirmed to something, then so be it. But as of right now, we have somebody that for whatever reason, I don't know if y'all just trying to play in our face because you think we're stupid, or if you literally just cannot see the difference in a George Soros and a Bill Gates. But let me give you a little bit of the difference. Number one, George Soros nor Bill Gates ever somehow decided to turn off the spigot of money that was going through to various organizations and agencies to the extent that it had actually been ordered by law that they should have access to it, to the extent that people are dying. There are people that have died as a result of this antic, and there are now farmers that are screaming that they may lose their family farms because we have over $500 million worth of food that is sitting and not going anywhere because of the attempt to shut down USAID. So let me tell you, that is the big difference between the two of them. And let me also tell you that a big difference between Democrats and Republicans is that we don't just say we believe in the Constitution, but we walk it like we talk it. What does that mean? That means that if we believe in the Constitution, we don't just pick out the Second Amendment and say that it is limitless, nor do we pick out the First Amendment and say that it is limitless. The thing about the Constitution is that it has always been a balancing test. There are limits to this. And right now, what we continue to hear from a certain side of the aisle is that there are no limits to this lawlessness. In fact, there are limits. And I can tell you that one of those limits typically is around hate crimes. You may or may not know that when it comes down to it, if somebody decides that they want to send something hateful in, say, the U.S. mail, they can actually go to prison for that, up to 5 years in prison. So yes, there are always going to be limits. So when we start to talk about Trump and him being pulled down on any platform, this just happened to be after he incited an insurrection. This just happened to be after, in a bipartisan way, this particular chamber decided that they were going to impeach him. So there was something a little different about what he did, because as we know, it led to people actually dying. But let's talk about who's doing the nefarious things with the tech giants. Because I don't think that one side of the aisle is promoting truth, but sometimes it may seem a little treasonous. All right, so we've got this article right here about this guy. Meta says it will end its fact-checking program on social media posts. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we have Washington Post says it will not endorse a candidate for president. We also know that actually they absolutely intended to endorse Kamala Harris. We have this one. Google Maps now show Gulf of America instead of Gulf of Mexico for app users in the United States, which is a complete farce because it's the Gulf of Mexico. It always has been. And we know that the AP got kicked out yesterday because they refused to buy into this lie, because that's all y'all really want to promote is lies. That's the big issue that we have. Elon Musk boosted false USAID conspiracy theories to shut down global aid. Now, while he was boosting those lies about USAID and he was stopping money going for, say, things such as Head Start, somehow the only money that didn't stop was the money to him and his organization. Now, I don't know how you can have him be the watchdog as well as the guy that is literally living off of the government. If we want to talk about government welfare, it looks like Elon Musk, because it's my understanding that just on yesterday, a new contract was approved for approximately $300 million for Elon Musk. So listen, I just want y'all to be honest. You want to sit here, you want to lie, because so often we hear, well, you know, yeah, we did lie. In fact, he admitted that he lied when he was in the Oval Office yesterday. But if it's a lie that will get you into office, such as saying, I know nothing about Project 2025, yet on day one, you literally do everything that you can to implement it, including making sure that you put, say, one of the main architects of Project 2025 over the OMB, it's okay, so long as you get the power that you seek. The problem is that the game is going to be on the American people. And when I say the American people, I mean all of us. Unfortunately, I am also stuck in the twilight zone because of the lies that were allowed to be propagated. Just like when you're talking about vaccines and all this nonsense. Right now in my state of Texas, there is an outbreak of measles. And what they are finding is that because there's been so much disinformation about vaccines, that kids are sick right now with measles that they did not have to have if they just trusted doctors and experts instead of randoms online. So I will end by saying this, Mr. Chairman, because I know we believe in Jesus in this chamber. In John 8:32, it says, the truth shall set you free. So maybe we should focus on a little bit of truth in this chamber.
My goodness, Jasmine Crockett has been speaking truth to power. Dr. Avis, from where you sit, obviously Jasmine Crockett is establishing a standard in terms of how this foolishness needs to be pushed back. What's your assessment of what Democrats have been doing so far? Because we don't seem to see that type of fire. I mean, there obviously are exceptions, but what's your assessment of what Democrats are doing up to now in the federal legislature, and what do you think they should be doing?
How unfiltered am I allowed to be?
Now, you hear from the founding, Doc. You already know what this is. We're 2 blocks from the White House, so I don't know if they come busting up in here, knuck if you buck, but I'm just saying. Go ahead.
Now, here is the thing. I understand that there is, they are at a numeric disadvantage. So I understand about the practicalities of what they can and cannot do with regards to asserting power over the situation. However, I have been beyond disappointed in seeing the relative silence out of them for weeks. I am, and let me just also say this. I don't understand why not one member of the Congressional Black Caucus has said shit about the fact that we have lost 60 years of civil rights infrastructure on his first day in office. And it is now legal to discriminate in hiring and federal contracting throughout the federal government and with every private company that does business with the federal government. So I want people to understand that now you might as well be living again in Jim Crow, because this is Jim Crow era legal realities that we're operating under right now as Black people in America. And where are our leaders? I hear crickets. I hear crickets. And I appreciate what Representative Crockett is doing, like the energy that she's bringing to this.
Yes.
But I'm still pissed that it took weeks for them to sort of get the memo that they need to do something except just being, in essence, these very timid questioners as people are being approved. And I'm still waiting for someone to express outrage, for someone to really understand and articulate to the American people what it means when he rescinded Executive Order 11246. I think that it is derelict of duty for those people who claim to be leaders. And let me just also say, and I'll stop here, not just elected leaders, but those who claim to be leaders in our community. Where are you? Where are you now?
That's right.
Why are you so silent?
That's right.
Why are you muzzled? Who is really pulling the strings?
Yes.
What is going on here? Because I understand the gravity of this moment. I'm outraged. I'm pissed. I'm doing what I can do as a private citizen, specifically with regards to trying to help give direction to business owners who have been sorely impacted by this as we speak. But those people who are elected to office in heavily Black districts, and seeing the rights of Black people being ripped away right in front of their eyes, the silence is deafening. And I just want to finally say, this needs to be rectified, or there needs to be some different choices made when primary season comes. Because I believe that if we're going to have leaders, we need to have leaders. We don't need to have seat fillers. We need to have leaders.
I know that's right.
And we are, at this moment, I'm completely underwhelmed, and that's putting it very lightly, with regards to my assessment of the reaction that has been provided, or rather the non-reaction, to the ripping array of rights that our people fought and died for.
Yes.
It's just really insulting to me at a base level as someone who understands what's happened. And I know they understand it. So why aren't you at least educating the people about it and speaking out about it, such that you can attempt to inject some shame into the situation with regards to the degree of violence that has been done to our rights by this ilk that's in office right now. It's truly infuriating.
Thank you, Doc. And we know, of course, that they have a razor-thin majority in the House of Representatives, and I can never tell whether or not Jim Jordan has a T-shirt on and that only cuts with a glimpse. Anyway, the voters in Ohio don't seem to be particularly intelligent in picking who they send to the federal legislature, at least not Jim Jordan's district. But Mike, in terms of what's coming up right in front of us, thinking about this as Avis has framed it, I mean, we should be fueled by this kind of, these indignities, I mean, just brazen. You know, we saw the man's mugshot in a frame right outside the Oval Office today. The picture was floated. I mean, but even beyond that, there are 3 open House seats, right? We know Stefanczyk is now representing, God bless America, the country at the UN. And so the New York 21st is open, the Florida 6th. Mike Waltz, and of course, Matt Gaetz, who thought he was going to be Attorney General, so he resigned his seat in the Florida 1st. In the short term, how should people be thinking? And of course, we know 90 million people didn't vote at all, so which was the biggest number between Trump or Harris. But how should people be thinking about what they can do right now to get organized and to move? As Avis said, she's not waiting on any congressperson. You know, we're going to do what we can. And are those 3 seats in play? The media will tell us that they're in blood red districts, but what's your opinion?
Well, first of all, I think to be engaged, number one, people need to be informed. That's why you need to watch the Black Star Network. Stop listening to black social media disinformation agents, because they helped you get into this position in the first place when they told you don't vote for Kamala Harris. You see Project 2025, you see it being implemented right now. New York Times has an extensive analysis that breaks down how in the first 23 days of Donald Trump's administration, he's implemented 60 measures that come right from Project 2025, whether they are executive orders or memos or what have you. And then also you want to organize. Now, back during the first Trump administration, you had a lot of people all over the country that organized based upon the document called Indivisible. And Indivisible was put together by former congressional staffers, and it dealt with fighting against the Trump administration. And it has strategies and taught you to understand civics and how to put pressure on your member of the House of Representatives and your member of the U.S. Senate, because you and other people like you in those districts and states can vote those people out of office. So you have people now who are revisiting that. Indivisible is being formed in different chapters across the country. And it was, we know a couple Wednesdays ago, Indivisible organized a national day of protest, 50-51, 50 states, 50 protests. They protested at state capitals on one day. And we keep in mind, going back to the first Trump administration, when they saved the Affordable Health Care Act and John McCain gave the thumbs down, that was a result of pressure coming from everyday citizens organizing, visiting their members of the House of Representatives every Tuesday, visiting their members of the Senate, et cetera, and putting pressure on them to save the Affordable Health Care Act. Also, we have to understand how, with the measures that Trump is implementing right now, the downsizing of the federal government, okay, almost 19% of federal employees are African American, but the measures that he's putting in place are hurting everybody. The New York Times has an extensive article talking about how farmers who voted for Trump are being hurt, whether it's him putting a pause on the Inflation Reduction Act, shutting down USAID, et cetera. And then remember the trade war that Trump started with China, which killed the soybean market for farmers here. OK, so then the U.S. government had to do $26 billion in aid for farmers using taxpayer dollars because of him. So we have to, it's so much going on at the same time, but we have to organize, educate ourselves, understand civics, understand the law. And lastly, African Americans have to redirect dollars from businesses that have stopped diversity, equity, and inclusion, or rolled back from that, redirect those dollars to Black-owned businesses. Because a lot of times people are like, there's a campaign to don't spend any money on February 28th. That's the last day of Black History Month. You should be spending money with Black-owned businesses. See, we still haven't figured this out.
Yeah.
We only deal with giving white people our money or taking it away, but we don't have enough self-respect to redirect that energy to spend our dollars with Black-owned businesses so that they can grow economically and employ more African Americans. So we talk about redistribute, redirect, and renegotiate. Redistribute the pain through targeted economic withdrawal strategies, renegotiate our relationship with corporate America for more supplier contracts, et cetera, and redirect our dollars to African American-owned businesses. This is what we have to do in 2025.
Indeed, and we have experience with all of those, so it shouldn't be too difficult once, I guess, we feel enough pain.
Well, that's why we have to study the history.
No question. There's no question about it, brother. Brother Matt, finally, in the first block, when we were talking with Devin Ambres, the questions you raised, I mean, really nudging us toward the big question of constitutional crisis, which is raised. Do you think we are on the precipice of a constitutional crisis? And if so, how should we be acting at this point?
So, yes, Doc, and I appreciate that question. I had lunch with a couple lawyers and we were talking about it. And what's interesting that a lot of people don't realize, I'm sure you and Michael and Dr. Avis know, is the Supreme Court has never truly been a co-equal branch until like the modern era, essentially. When the country was founded, they were kind of the redheaded stepchild, if you will, of the branches. And it's interesting that they are having an outsized significance these days, considering in the history of this country, they have not. I tell you all of that to say, what concerns me is the big issue is the courts are responsive, but they're not something that reacts in real time. So what I've been racking my brain on is what do we do right now? Because lawsuits and everything are fine, but Elon Musk is looting the government today. That's right. And until I get in front of a judge and I get a judge to give me an order and I get them to adhere to that order, there's all kinds of damage being done. So yes, I think we're at a constitutional crisis now. But the question that I keep asking myself and that I don't have an answer for you on is what do we do real time? Because the problem is right now, maybe down the road, the Senate confirms Elon Musk, but there is so much damage done between today and that day, right? And what you do in real time, I don't know. I don't know whether it's some of the strategies that Michael mentioned, but I do know, and some of the things that Dr. Avis mentioned, I do know that what's not going to work is what we thought would work, what used to work. And now I don't know if that means our representatives, for instance, in the House need to start filibustering despite the statute that doesn't allow them to do that, whether they need to be standing at 1600 Pennsylvania every day, what we need to be doing as a people, because the things we would normally have as mechanisms to respond are clearly not only ineffective, but are not being given the same gravitas they normally are, i.e. the court system. And I don't know where that leaves us, but I do know that I think it has to be more radical action than thoughts and prayers and thought pieces and long social media posts. That's not going to get us there. And I don't know what the answer is in real time, but I'm trying to find that answer myself.
No question. We should reach out and find out, talk to Cliff and Latosha and the folks at Black Voters Matter, because right now the Republicans have a 218, 215 advantage in the federal legislature. Those 3 seats are open. So as I said before, the Florida 6th, the New York 21st, and the Florida 1st. And you can't tell me there aren't enough people in all 3 of those districts to flip those seats. And we might be able to make short work of this in the near future, because they're going to have special elections. But that would require a hell of a lot of work. And of course, we've done that kind of work before. We can do it again.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $6.65 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Yesterday, Super Bowl took place, and there was excitement about it. You had Kendrick Lamar performing at halftime. Of course, you had the Eagles playing the Chiefs. I called it. Congratulations on the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, that amazing defense winning the Super Bowl. Then you had John Baptiste singing the national anthem. You had, of course, Lettucey singing the national anthem. And folk are always whining and complaining. And so here's my boy, Armstrong Williams. Armstrong, we cool. You know we get along. But you knew I was going to hit your ass after you posted this on Twitter.
Yet again, the National Football League has decided to desecrate the sacred American sport of football, a sport that has united Americans for decades by playing the divisive Negro National Anthem before the game. Now look, I certainly have no problem with there being a Black American National Anthem, but there's a time and place for everything, and the Super Bowl is not the time nor the place. We don't play the Asian American National Anthem, the Muslim American National Anthem, the Indian American National Anthem, the Native American National Anthem. What has caused us to play favorites with certain Americans over every other race during the Super Bowl? What is it? The point is, the moment you start playing favorites, you inevitably exclude everyone else, everyone. And you start controversy, which we don't need in sports. It's a place for us to heal and unite, not to divide. This is why we shouldn't play favorites at all. It's why we should sing only the United States National Anthem, an anthem made for all Americans that includes everybody, regardless of race, color, or creed, because that is what people don't seem to understand. Yes, America has had a marred past with racial injustice, just as every other country has. But our national anthem has always stood for one thing and one thing only. Not white Americans, not Black Americans, but Americans. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, the national anthem is your anthem. And when that beautiful song is sung, it is sung for every American, everywhere. I'm Armstrong Williams, live from Super Bowl 59.
First, Armstrong, that was some bullshit that also was filled with lies. First of all, ain't no Asian national anthem. Ain't no Latino national anthem. Ain't no Muslim national anthem. So how in the hell can you go, we're not playing these other national anthems? Because they don't exist. So you're whining about lift every voice and sing being sung at the Super Bowl. This year, y'all, Lettucey led the singing of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Here's some of it.
Performed by 500 school children in 1900. We welcome 125 youth choir members from the Greater New Orleans High School Chorale Collective, directed by Dr. Jeffrey Redding and Jessica Harvey. Please welcome Grammy Award-winning vocalist and New Orleans native, Lettucey.
Okay, so Lettucey in that choir, singing, lift every voice and sing the Negro National Anthem. And for the people who have no clue, who have no understanding, who know nothing about history, Lift Every Voice and Sing was not penned by James Weldon Johnson as the Negro National Anthem. No, it's a hymn. It's a Christian hymn. The song was first sung publicly at a celebration of the birth of former President Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, that was the first time. It wasn't until some 30 years later that the NAACP called it the Negro National Anthem because it spoke to the fight against racism by black people. So the author of the song, of the Christian hymn, never called it the Negro National Anthem. That was it being coined by the NAACP. And so all these people, all these right wingers, why are they singing, the Negro National Anthem? Why are they, I don't understand why. This is just wrong. It's not right. It's just showing we're not unified. It's all this little whining and complaining. And among these idiots who love running their mouth is that dumbass who's in Trump's ear, Charlie Kirk, the one who wants to get rid of the Civil Rights Act and MLK holiday. Go to my iPad. So he tweeted this: only our actual national anthem should be performed at the Super Bowl. And my boy Ben Watson, the former NFL player, Super Bowl winner, he goes, why so much hate for America the Beautiful? I think it's a beautiful song about our country. Oh, I'm sorry. Were y'all aware that there was another song sung and performed? Yeah. Cue it up. Trombone Shorty of New Orleans and Laura Daigle. Guess what? They actually performed another song, America the Beautiful, which has happened multiple times in previous Super Bowls. Roll it.
Skies for amber waves for mountain majesty.
Wow! Oh my God! It's another song. What shall we do? The world is ending. We literally did a second song, not the Star Spangled Banner, not the national anthem. We did America the Beautiful. So, that's it. That's sacrilegious. There's no song that should be sung other than the Star Spangled Banner. And then they complain about that. Oh my God, I didn't like this. John Baptiste, New Orleans, Grammy Award winner, amazing artist. He did the national anthem. Go.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam? Broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
Oh my goodness! There was also some booing when they showed that idiot. So, oh my goodness, what do? Here we go. It's. I don't understand. What did Armstrong say? Oh my God, that song, that beautiful song. That song that speaks for all of us. The song that represents all of us. This was a piece that was published in the Washington Post 5 months ago. The ugly reason the Star Spangled Banner didn't become our national anthem for a century. Oh my goodness, what did I just say? Yeah, y'all, when the Star Spangled Banner was written, it did not become the nation's anthem until a century later. I don't understand. I mean, this song was written in September of 1814. Francis Scott Key in Baltimore wrote this song, and he as you see right here, he overheard plans for a surprise attack on Baltimore. He witnessed this, and so he was then moved to write this song. And, oh, I'm sorry, who was Francis Scott Key? Francis Scott Key was a slaveholder, like many of the founding fathers. Francis Scott Key also was an anti-abolitionist. He did not want to see people of African descent to be free. So he penned the Star Spangled Banner. And, you know, we sing it. The problem is we don't sing the full song. And we don't sing the full song because that third stanza is problematic. Because the third stanza talks about slaves and the British. Please show it. So the third stanza, and where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of fight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave over the land and of the free and the home and the brave. He writes about those slaves. Go to my iPad. These lyrics are a clear reference to the colonial Marines, according to Jefferson Morley, author of Snowstorm in August, Washington City, Francis Scott Key, and the Forgotten Race Riot of 1835. Quote, they are clearly meant to scorn and threaten the African Americans who took the British up on their offer, he wrote in a recent essay for the Washington Post. Key surely knew about the colonial Marines, and it's even possible he saw them among the contingent of British ships that sailed into the Baltimore harbor. Because you see, there were people who were enslaved people of African descent, who the British said, if you fight for us, we win, we will give you your freedom. And black, they say, oh, we will take up arms and we're not trying to be enslaved. And so Francis Scott Key was not happy to see them fighting for the British. The other reason it was dropped because in World War I and II, the British became our allies. And so therefore, they did not want that to be seen as a point of contention. That's the history of the Star-Spangled Banner. So Armstrong, you're full of shit by saying, oh my God, it's a song that brings us together and all. You're wrong. The actual song doesn't. The actual song was written by a slaveholder. The actual songwriter, see again, I'm juxtaposing two different songs. James Weldon Johnson writes a Christian hymn. Slaveholder Francis Scott Key writes a song that praises the slaveholders, that praises them in their fight for the British, and degrades the enslaved people of African descent for fighting with the Brits. So actually, Armstrong, if I am to compare two songs that really represent America, represents Americans, that represents unity, then I probably will say, if I am comparing the history of these two songs, the songwriters of these two songs, then I probably will say that Lift Every Voice and Sing is much higher and more representative of unity of the people of this country. So maybe, Armstrong, instead of bitching about the song and fanning the flames of your right-wing conservative followers, maybe what you should do is show them this video. Maybe what you should do is offer them some education. Maybe what you should do is teach them what real American history. But maybe the problem is because MAGA and the right wing desperately wants to remove certain books out of classrooms. MAGA and the right wing and the Republicans don't want their white kids and their followers to be taught all of these proper and correct things about American history. Maybe because what they want them to do is they want them to maintain a level of ignorance, so they walk around thinking that this song is all about unity and we're together, when in fact that is not what the Star Spangled Banner was about. Because I also thought that you conservatives, when it came to the Constitution, were original constructionists, that you were originalists, that you wanted to really study and you believed in the original intent of the framers' words, not how they were interpreted, but the original intent. So therefore, Armstrong and all of you MAGA, right-wing, conservative, Republicans, ideologues, if I choose to be a constructionalist and an originalist when it comes to the text, then if I study the Star Spangled Banner, I see how deeply rooted it is in slavery and evil. But if I study that Christian hymn of James Weldon Johnson, what I will see is a song that was written from a place of Christian unity. So forgive me if y'all are so bothered and sensitive to the song Lift Every Voice and Sing, also known as the Negro National Anthem, being sung at the Super Bowl, and in the words of Della Reese from Harlem Nights, kiss my entire ass. We'll close it out with my panel. Congo, you first.
You know, when you compare the lyrics of both of these songs, it's clear that Lift Every Voice and Sing, it could actually be America's anthem. There's no mention of race in any way, shape, or form. It's talking about a journey in this country. Everybody has a different journey to get where they need to be. And then when you compare it to what you talked about with Keith and the Star Spangled Banner, but the Star Spangled Banner, it really shows America's inherent contradiction, right? Even though it's talking about freedom, and a song like that is written by a slave owner, right? And that's contradicts so many other things. But when you take it back to their Super Bowl, they were so mad at everything. I saw people online, it's like, oh, I thought you all believed in DEI. How come all of the dancers were black during the halftime show? Like, they were just picking every single thing, from the quarterbacks to the black woman performance coach who won. They could not help. And of course, they had problems with black singers of the Star Spangled Banner, as well as Lift Every Voice and Sing, of course. So this is what they're going to do. They have nothing to say about Trump doing a military salute during that, which made no sense whatsoever. So they're going to keep pushing to make sure that we're not represented in any way, shape, or form. And the fact of the matter is, for an event like that, they also noticed, we remember, Roland, they removed end racism from both sides of the field as well. So they were trying to do something, but by representing us with the Black National Anthem, that was powerful. Lettucey killed it. Having the high school students there, the representation was real. And this is just an example of how, in the face of all of the ignorance and hate and disrespect, as they continue to come for us in our culture, we got to continue to shine bright on every stage. And that's what we did yesterday.
Well, it's quite hilarious to me, Tommy, when they are going on again and on and on and on. It wasn't until 1931 that the Star Spangled Banner became the national anthem. In fact, go to my iPad, this is the Washington Post piece. Although the Star Spangled Banner and all of its verses were immediately famous, Key's overt racism prevented it from becoming the national anthem while he was alive, Morley wrote. There was no official anthem, and many people chose to sing other songs like My Country 'Tis of Thee. Key's anthem gained popularity over time, particularly among post-Reconstruction white Southerners and the military in the early 20th century. All but the first verse were cut, not for their racism, but for their anti-British bent. The United Kingdom was by then an ally.
Yeah, Roland. Well, you know, that's what happens when you buy the 45 instead of the 12-inch. Yeah, you know, but listen, seriously, though, with all due, you know, in all fairness to Armstrong Williams, you know, they could have had somebody sing Sweet Caroline for the white people, and they didn't. And that was hurtful. But no, you know, I was watching that Super Bowl last night, and, you know, there was like, I was looking at Twitter, and, you know, as my daughter would say, the white people were pressed. And I was watching, especially the halftime show, and, you know, about a minute in, I noticed there was not a single white performer on stage, anywhere to be seen through that whole halftime show. But I noticed that because it made me think of how far we've come, that, you know, when I was coming up, you know, there was a Public Enemy song where they bragged about Doug Williams and getting to have a black quarterback. And look where we are now. So, you know, if anything, you know, we have come a long way, but we also haven't, you know. The more you think that something's changed, the more somebody comes around like Charlie Kirk or Armstrong Williams to remind you that no, you know, there's always going to be a backlash or a white lash, as they say.
Well, again, I just think it's hilarious, Julian, that all they do is sit here and whine and complain and do all of these things when the history is very clear, but their desire is to whitewash the history because they don't want Americans to know the true history.
Well, this movement, this anti-DEI movement, this anti-blackness, it's about erasure. They want to make sure that people don't know what our contributions are. And so it's really important that we continue to put them out there, as Alma Congo said, to put them out there and to have us shine in every way. I just, getting rid of the end racism sign is a step backward, but singing the Negro National Anthem, one of my favorite songs in the world, is a leap forward. And frankly, white America, y'all need to learn it too. And as it could be our national anthem. We end, the last verse of Lift Every Voice ends with true to our God, true to our native land. How can you argue about that? There's nothing whatsoever to argue about. So what we're really looking at is a bunch of folks who are just stewing in their misery. Just sit back, enjoy the game, and shut up. And just shut up. And Armstrong, please, that little whatever he put out there, you know, we all know Armstrong. We all like Armstrong. He's a good guy at some level. But at some level, he sings off a hymn book of nonsense. As you said earlier, Roland, when you started talking about this, there's no Asian American anthem or any other anthem. And the reason why the Negro National Anthem is so important is because of the marginalization of Black people. That song has taken us through so much. We have come over the ways where tears have been watered. We have come walking ahead through the blood of the slaughtered. I mean, come on. That really does speak to not only our experience in these United States, the experience of many others. These people are, I mean, they're children. They're whiners, and they could, like I said, sit back, enjoy the game, enjoy the music, enjoy the song, and go to work tomorrow if you still have a job, because if you work for the federal government with the orange man inside, you might not. So enjoy and embrace the Super Bowl for what it is. It's a national diversion. Enjoy it. I don't understand the pettiness. I don't understand the smallness. But what I do understand is that it's resistance. And that song is about resistance. It is absolutely about resistance. And that's what we're going to be doing for the next 4 years while we have, a sociopath and an oligarch in the house that enslaved people built, the descendants of enslaved people. When we sing it together in our things, some of us after the third verse, we lift our fists, and that's what I'm doing now.
Well, and just in case people don't understand, James Weldon Johnson wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing to honor Booker T. Washington. In 1917, the NAACP often began to refer it as the Negro National Anthem, and that was 14 years before Congress actually made it the national anthem. So for Armstrong and the right wing and all of you, it was called the Negro National Anthem before there ever was a national anthem. So again, y'all are following black people.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Folks, it is an unbelievable thing happening in the Southern District Office of the United States Attorney's Office in New York City. A stunning shakeup. 3 top federal prosecutors have resigned after refusing to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The acting U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, Danielle Sassoon, and 2 senior prosecutors in Washington, D.C. have stepped down after Trump's Justice Department ordered them to dismiss the case. At the center of the controversy, allegations that Adams, a former police captain and the city's second black mayor, took illegal campaign contributions and bribes from foreign nationals. The DOJ says keeping the case alive would interfere with Adams' ability to tackle crime and immigration issues, but these attorneys are saying, no, they actually broke the law. Now, it was also crazy. The prosecutor wrote, NBC has obtained a letter where Danielle Sassoon has said that the Adams legal team was asking for a quid pro quo with the DOJ saying, hey, if y'all want to see, y'all drop the charges, I'll follow through when it comes to fighting immigration. Not only that, this is a letter this is a former law clerk of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who wrote this here, who laid out, he said, I do not repeat here the evidence against Adams that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed federal crimes. Mr. Bowe rightfully has never called into question that the case team conducted this investigation with integrity and that the charges against Adams are serious and supported by fact and law. Mr. Bowe's memo, however, which directs me to dismiss an indictment returned by a duly constituted grand jury for reasons having nothing to do with the strength of the case, raises serious concerns that render the contemplated dismissal inconsistent with my ability and duty to prosecute federal crimes without fear or favor and to advance good faith arguments before the courts. When I took my oath of office 3 weeks ago, I vowed to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I was about to enter. In carrying out that responsibility, I am guided by, among other things, the principles of federal prosecution set forth in the Justice Manual and your recent memoranda instructing attorneys for the Department of Justice to make only good faith arguments and not to use the criminal enforcement authority of the United States to achieve political objectives or other improper aims. This is what he lays out to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Folks, it is unbelievable what is happening there. And joining us right now, former Maryland State's Attorney, former federal prosecutor, and now Congressman Glenn Ivey. Congressman Ivey, glad to have you here. Have you ever seen, I think the only thing that's comparable to what's happening here is when you had the actions taken by Richard Nixon against the Attorney General, and you had other attorneys saying, I'm not going to follow through with your orders.
Yeah, that was the Saturday Night Massacre, and Archie Cox was the attorney that they were trying to have fired. And, you know, they refused to move forward with the firing just because he was investigating Richard Nixon, and they were trying to curtail that investigation and protect Nixon from prosecution. Now, you know, ultimately they ended up just like they did here. They sort of fired the ones that refused to do it. Cox and Weld, William Weld, who later became the governor of Massachusetts. But, you know, it's the same kind of deal. They'll find somebody to do it, but it's still wrong, it's still unethical, and it still violates basic principles of prosecutorial ethics. The attorney here, I thought, did the right thing. She did it the right way. She submitted something in writing, raising her concerns about it. But as you pointed out, this was not a decision that, you know, Beauvais and Bondi were making on the merits. This was just based on they want to try and essentially reward Eric Adams, apparently, for him taking a position that was positive with respect to immigration during the campaign and the presidential campaign cycle. And as Hakeem Jeffries has suggested, the fact that they dismissed it but without prejudice, which means they could bring it back later, means they can hold this over Eric Adams' head as long as he's in office. And basically, as Hakeem said, keep him on a short leash and make sure he continues to do the things that the Biden administration, the Trump administration wants him to do.
This right here, this is what she wrote. Rather than be rewarded, Adams' advocacy should be called out for what it is, an improper offer of immigration enforcement assistance in exchange for a dismissal of his case. She says, she lays it out right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an improper thing to do because, you know, if you're going to drop a case of this magnitude, you know, you bring federal charges against the mayor of New York City. That means this very serious case is gone through all of the channels at the Department of Justice. They're at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, but also up to Maine Justice, where the former Attorney General, I'm sure, reviewed this case before it was decided upon. And they decided to go forward based on the merits. There's sufficient evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, as she states in her letter there. And in fact, they were about to bring a superseding indictment.
Yeah, they were about to hit it with another indictment.
Yeah, they're going to add charges because they found new evidence that indicated additional criminal charges should be brought. They were about to do a superseding indictment. Instead of going in that direction, though, the Trump administration reversed course totally and told him to throw the case out. Not all the way. So you got to keep it over his head, but enough so that the federal charges don't go forward now unless he carries out the immigration policies that they want.
For the people who are at home, explain what a superseding indictment is.
Superseding indictment, when a case first goes to a grand jury, the prosecutor presents evidence and asks the grand jury to return charges on particular criminal counts. And let's say they bring, 4 or 5 counts. And that indictment is returned. That means it's presented in court so the defendant knows what the charges are. And then the case begins moving forward in public. As the case goes forward, if prosecutors find new information or new evidence that more crimes were committed, they can add more charges. And they bring a second indictment, or called the superseding indictment, which adds the new charges to the old charges. So in this instance, it looks like what happened was the prosecutors in Manhattan found more evidence of more criminal conduct, or they found evidence that sufficiently bolstered charges that they thought about bringing before but didn't think were strong enough yet. But they found strong enough evidence to add more charges to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt against the mayor of New York City. And that's why they were seeking a superseding indictment.
So what was crazy here, they found additional charges of him ordering people to destroy evidence. They have all of this, and go to my iPad again. The acting deputy attorney general, Emil Bove, sends a letter saying, hey, drop the charges. And these U.S. attorneys are like, wait a minute, we literally have a judge. I mean, like, what are you doing? How are you in D.C. making this call when we're sitting here with the information? What the hell is going on? This is, then of course, when he was asked about it in the Oval Office, Trump goes, I know anything about it. No, this is, Eric Adams has been trying to suck up to Donald Trump since Election Day to do this very thing right here. And these attorneys, multiple attorneys, have now quit, saying what the hell y'all doing in D.C. is just wrong and corrupt.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, this was an effort that Adams' lawyers had been working with the Trump administration apparently for some time to try and get this kind of an outcome so that he could avoid criminal prosecution, at least to get through his election, apparently. But I'm sure he's hoping that if he continues to work with them and do what they want him to do on immigration and other things, they just won't bring the charges again. So, you know, we'll have to see how it plays out. But I thought these prosecutors who took a stand and resigned, I thought, you know, it was really profiles in courage. You know, these are young attorneys. She's 38. She's come a long way. She's a Yale Law School grad. As you pointed out, she was a Scalia clerk. Federalist Society. So that means she's conservative. This is not some, you know, wild-eyed liberal, you know, trying to buck the Trump administration. She's one of those ones they're grooming for higher things. But she decided to give that up potentially and take a stand on this in a principled way.
I mean, what's crazy is she actually said, stay with the shot here. She says, Mr. Bowles admonished a member of my team who took notes during that meeting and directed the collection of those notes at the meeting's conclusion.
Yeah, don't leave a paper trail. That's, you know, apparently what Bovig was concerned about. But, you know, this stuff's going to come to light, and it did quickly here. And I think she was right to preserve that in writing in the letter that she sent to them. So now it's all on the record. But, you know, this shows the shady stuff that the Trump administration's doing and the way they're trying to convert the Department of Justice to a tool that's totally political and just serves his political ends. And, you know, he's got the retribution list. He's going to go after the J6 prosecutors. He's got the effort going forward to go after the J6 FBI special agents that investigated those cases. This is part of his total corruption effort of the rule of law and the way the federal prosecution system should work in the United States.
And I want folks to understand that, again, typically you have checks and balances when it comes to the FBI, when it comes to the U.S. Marshals. What you have here, especially if he's able to get Kash Patel as his FBI director, he is going to have a team that will not resist him, that will do whatever he wants, that will suck up to him, and then they will ignore judicial orders. I don't trust these people at all. And you know, we've never had a situation, frankly, where you will have the entire Department of Justice, which is the law enforcement mechanism for the federal government, be completely controlled at the whims of an evil, maniacal individual sitting in the Oval Office who wants to exert retribution against any of his real or perceived enemies, whether they are journalists, whether they are corporate America, whether they are other countries. It will be hell on wheels if Kash Patel is FBI director, Pam Bondi is attorney general, and these sycophants are in control.
Yeah, 30 of us in Congress came out. We did a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee 2 days ago asking Grassley and all of the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee. We know the Democrats are going to vote against Patel, but for them to vote against him as well. You know, this guy, he published an enemies list in his book. He's done these like children's book calling Donald Trump King Donald, so you know where he's going with that. You had the Trump Attorney General, Bill Barr, say this guy over his dead body should he even be deputy director of the FBI, much less director of the FBI. It's clear he's not qualified. Oh, I forgot. This guy had to take the Fifth Amendment so to try and avoid grand jury testimony about Trump. Then they immunized him to force him to testify. And then at his confirmation hearing, he refused to talk about what he testified about. I guess it was just so embarrassing and bad for him. So this is the guy they want to lead the FBI? Well, yeah, because he'll do whatever Trump wants. So, you know, it's Bondi, who was, you know, another Trump sycophant. Her staff is going to be Trump's former criminal defense team in the criminal cases that he had going before. Patel's going to be running the FBI. And you got J.D. Vance threatening the federal judges who are coming out with the injunctions against Elon Musk and those efforts. Vance and those guys and Musk are saying, well, you know, we might have to impeach these guys. That's how he's trying to do a total takeover of the rule of law, the federal prosecution process, and the federal judiciary.
All right, then, Congressman Glenn Obvious. Really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You heard what we just talked about there. Folks, I can't reiterate this enough. Listen to me clearly. I cannot reiterate this enough. When you've got technology companies running scared, when you've got legacy media not doing their job, when you've got black-owned media that is disintegrated, now is more than ever for us to have independent media that cares about the truth, that is willing to say what needs to be said. So when you support Roland Martin Unfiltered, this show, when you support the Black Star Network, you're not just supporting me, you're supporting the other shows. Our goal is to add 2 more shows this year. We want additional shows. We want more weekly and daily shows because we want to be able to speak truth to power. We want to be able to say what is necessary where other people are scared. And when you are scared, when you're looking over your shoulder, oh my God, that advertising contract is not going to come in. Well, guess what? A lot of these major ad agencies, they're not even supporting us anyway. You know, in 6 years of doing this show, Group M hasn't done a damn thing with us. Publicis hasn't done anything with us. You've got Horizon, you've got all of these folks, they haven't done jack. And so we are calling it like we see it, and we're speaking truth. And unlike some of these other so-called progressives and people who believe in truth, I'm not running around trying to kiss MAGA ass and kiss Trump's ass. I won't be going to Mar-a-Lago, not for a damn thing. And so this is about us being able to speak truth. So when you support this show and this network with your resources, that is exactly what is happening, because we are trying to build something that is bigger and broader, and actually it has the courage to say what needs to be said, even when it makes other folk uncomfortable. If you want to contribute giving Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. This is it right here. And if you are listening, simply go to blackstarnetwork.com to check it out. Also, because you want to see your checking money order, some of y'all old school, we understand that. See your checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And again, folks, we've got some 4 million social media followers. If only 20,000 of our fans contribute at least $50 each, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, that's $1 million. It allows us to be able to continue to build, to add these shows and do the work that's required. So your support is needed. So please join our Bring the Funk fan club today. If you've not already joined, if you have given to us in the past, please renew your commitment, because it's important that we support Black-owned media, because Black-owned media matters. Select billionaires are doing all they can to destroy public education in America. And they're explaining what they're doing, okay? They want to destroy, let's be real clear, they want to destroy the teachers union, okay? Because they believe that that's the problem with education. They want to destroy the public education infrastructure, And I told y'all on the show who created that. If you read James D. Anderson's book, The Education of Blacks in the South, from 1860 to 1935, it was African Americans, formerly enslaved people of African descent, who was elected to state houses all across the country, beginning in South Carolina, who put it in the state constitution for taxpayer-funded education. What Republicans want to do is they want to destroy that entire system. And they want to, under the guise of school choice, and they've been pushing their voucher programs. It's happening in Tennessee. It's happening in Texas. We've seen these things happen in Florida. But those two states are the biggest when we talk about the school voucher issue. In Texas is so bad, where the corrupt governor of the state, Greg Abbott, and the corrupt lieutenant governor of the state, Dan Patrick, two MAGA Republicans, they lost last session. The governor kept calling them back in the special session. They kept losing. The governor and Dan Patrick then said, we're going to target Republicans who voted against it, and they largely succeeded in booting them from office. Well, last week, the school voucher scam passed the Texas Senate. Now it goes to the Texas House. Former San Antonio teacher and current Texas State Representative James Tallarico, he's making headlines all across the state and on social media for calling school vouchers welfare for the wealthy. Listen to this.
Greg Abbott is selling this private school voucher scam by calling it school choice. But it's not school choice. It's the school's choice, because private schools can deny admission to any kid for any reason they want. So how is it choice when the private school has all the power? How is it choice when a majority of counties in the state of Texas don't have a single private school in them? How is it choice when private schools don't have to provide transportation or special education services? And how is it choice when the voucher doesn't even cover the full cost at most private schools in Texas? If you gave my former students on the west side of San Antonio a $10,000 voucher, there's still no way they could afford a $20,000 a year private school. But here's the catch. The wealthy parent who is already sending their kid to a $20,000 a year private school is about to get a $10,000 discount, a $10,000 coupon at our expense. Vouchers are welfare for the wealthy. And by taking money out of our public schools and giving it to wealthy parents who don't need it, vouchers would be a massive, historic transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. And the last thing I'll say, there are a lot of self-proclaimed Christians pushing these voucher scams. I can't think of anything more un-Christian than stealing from the poor to give to the rich.
Joining us now is Texas State Representative James Tallarico. Glad to have you on the show. Let me put this in perspective. Several years ago, I founded School Choice is the Black Choice. I've supported charter schools. I've supported African Americans, running charter schools, being in control of charter schools, being in control of the hiring, the contracts, the curriculum, all those different things. I've also spoken at school choice conferences, and I spoke at one years ago here in DC. And many of them, and most the room was mostly white, and they were supporting vouchers. And I said to them that if you are supporting vouchers for suburban white parents, I said, and not for the, let's say, bottom 10% of schools, then you got this wrong. I said, if you truly support vouchers, then you will support them first for who desperately need a better education, as opposed to the top end of folks. And I've been on the record, this initiative in Texas is a school choice scam. I absolutely do not support it because it's not about education. It's not about educating the folks who go to poor performing schools. This is literally about allowing wealthy parents or even middle to upper income, largely white suburban parents who can't afford to send their kids to private school as a way to let them, and it is about gutting public education.
That's exactly right.
And I'm also a native Texan. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. And thank you for covering this. There are not nearly enough media outlets telling this story about what's happening to public education in this country. You obviously see billionaires at the federal level with Elon Musk trying to shut down the Department of Education. And you see billionaires here at the state level in Texas trying to dismantle our public schools. And private school voucher scams are just part of that effort. We've also seen it with demonizing librarians and trying to ban books. We've seen it with this hysteria about critical race theory and efforts to whitewash our history. This is all part of the same coordinated effort to defund and close public schools across the country. And it's important that we know what we're up against. I really thank you for your clarification because, you know, we do have school choice here in Texas. Students can go to all kinds of public schools, whether it's a traditional independent school district, whether it's a magnet school, whether it's an academy or an early college high school, or whether it's a nonprofit public charter school that has to follow the same rules as a traditional public school. We have all those options here in the state of Texas. This is an entirely different idea. The idea that you can take money that would otherwise go to our public schools, both traditional and charter, and then taking it out of the public school system and giving it to unaccountable private schools that serve the wealthy few. This is a whole different effort that we're seeing here. And thank you for that clarification, because the words get thrown around and it can get kind of confusing what we're talking about.
And see, here's the game that they're also playing. And again, I spent 2 or 3 years studying this entire school choice movement. My man, Dr. Howard Fuller, former superintendent in Milwaukee, he calls it parental choice. And I spent 2 or 3 years studying it before I decided to go public with the position that I took. And it's all kind of different phrases that you're right, that are thrown around. And I remember it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was even longer. Dr. Steve Perry, he has several public charter schools in Connecticut and also in New York. He gave me a call because that was a woman, it was a white woman. She was I don't even know what the group she was over. And she was trying to build Black and Latino support for the initial voucher bill. And so he was like, well, I'm not from Texas, so I'll call my man Roland, who is. So he calls me, and we're in a three-way, and he tells me who she is and her organization. And so she starts talking about, oh, this is about improving education. I said, what's the name of your group again? And I pull it up. And so I pull up her organization, the website. I can't remember what it was. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you know the top performing Black and Latino charter schools in San Antonio? She says, no. I said, do you know the top Black and Hispanic performing charter schools in Houston? No. Do you know the top performing in Black charter schools in Dallas? She says, no. I said, well, I'm not going to help you with a damn thing. I said, your entire board is white. You don't even know. I said, but you want to ride Black and Latino parents to get this bill passed when you don't even engage with Black and Latino people. I said, so your bill is going to fail. The reason I know this, I've already talked to the Texas Black Caucus about this, because they hit me and said, hey, Roland, can you explain why you support school choice? I said, your bill is a failure because you won't even rally the existing parents. I said, I know what this bill is about. It's not about the parents and the children. And she was just stunned that I went there. And I said, so I'm sorry. Don't think for a second that you can ever call me to help with this crap. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they target these Republicans. And I hope these rural Republicans wake up and realize that they are about to get screwed. They are about to get just jacked up, because we know, and part of the problem with a lot of these charter schools and school choice, transportation problems, access to them. And so rural Texas, out of all people, they better wake up and say, hey, Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick are playing us for fools.
That's right. And a majority of counties in the state of Texas, 151 counties, don't have a single private school in them. And so I don't know how it's choice for the students up in the Panhandle or over in deep East Texas or the Rio Grande Valley when there's not a private school for hundreds of miles around. You mentioned this earlier, that these private school voucher scams have a long, dark history in this country. And the first private school voucher scam was proposed in the Texas legislature in 1957. And of course, the history buffs who are watching your program know that that was just a couple years after the Brown versus Board of Education decision came down from the Supreme Court. And that first voucher scam was a deliberate attempt to resegregate public schools, to allow white students to leave newly integrated public schools to go to white-only private schools. And now history is repeating itself. And actually, I don't know if you saw this, Roland, but the Republican state senator from deep East Texas, this is one of the most conservative Republican senators in the state Senate. Last week, he voted against this voucher bill, and he said that he is worried about a new segregation if this bill passes. That is a Republican state senator from East Texas talking about a new segregation, separating the rich from the rest of us if this bill passes. So we've got to understand the history here and understand how it can replay itself if we're not careful.
Well, and again, for people who don't understand how these things happen in Texas, when the Hopwood decision was overturned by the Fifth Circuit, the black state legislators, State Senator Royce West and others, when they went back and said, okay, how do we craft this? What they did was they actually reinstituted something that was in place when I graduated from high school, Jack Yates in Houston in 1987, and how I got into Texas A&M. And that was, I was in the top 10% of my graduating class. So the reason that got passed, the top 10%, meaning any student in Texas, any public school who was in the top 10% of their graduating class was automatically admitted to every state university. Well, what they did was the black and Latino legislators in urban centers got with the rural representatives in the centers because the rural folks were pissed that their students were not getting into Texas A&M and the University of Texas. Unfortunately, it was the rich suburban parents that gutted the top 10% later because they complained that, oh, my child is so smart and it's smarter for that kid in inner city Fort Worth or in rural Texas, and they gutted it. But that's how that actually was instituted.
That's exactly right. And it's still happening today. You mentioned my colleague, Senator Royce West from Dallas. He is still leading the fight against this voucher bill this many years later. And we still have partners on the other side of the aisle. I think it's really important that we do not allow public education to become a partisan issue, to become a red team versus blue team thing, because it's not. We all depend on public schools. Even if we don't have kids in public schools, we depend on an educated workforce to grow our economy into the future. And so this affects all of us. You may know that before I ran for office, I was a public school teacher myself. I taught in San Antonio ISD on the west side of the city, which is a historic Mexican-American neighborhood. And so I know that vouchers will hurt my former students on the west side of San Antonio, just like they're going to hurt students in the 3rd Ward of Houston, and just like they're going to hurt white students in small towns all across Texas. So we're all in this boat together now, and we've got to create a coalition that is bigger than party, bigger than race, bigger than culture, to save public schools, because this project of educating every child, regardless of how much money their parents make, regardless of what zip code they're born into, it is a revolutionary project that we're a part of, and it's very fragile, and it can disappear if we're not careful.
So for people who also have not been following what's happening in Texas, that was a very right-wing MAGA conservative that they wanted to be the Speaker of the House. And then you had another Republican who's very conservative, but what he did was he went to the Democrats. And so he was elected with more Democratic votes than Republican, but he's the Speaker of the House. And what I keep telling people, when you're the Speaker of the Texas House, just like, frankly, Dan Patrick should be operating as Lieutenant Governor and Greg Abbott should be operating as the Governor of Texas, you represent all constituents. And so they've been angry. They talked about kicking him out of the party, censoring him, changing the rules. And so what is it looking like? They took out several Republicans who voted against this last year. It's going to be a very, very close, tight vote. But do you believe, and what are y'all doing to convince these rural Republicans that they are going to play a part in the destruction of their own public schools if they support this billionaire-funded effort by Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick?
Yeah, so just a quick update on where we've been before. 2 years ago, in 2023, Greg Abbott made private school voucher scams his number one legislative priority. He barnstormed the state. He spent millions of dollars. He was bullying and bribing lawmakers to get this thing passed. And on the Friday before Thanksgiving in 2023, a bipartisan coalition of urban and suburban Democrats with those small town rural Republicans, we came together and we defeated Greg Abbott's voucher scam on the floor of the House. But then Greg Abbott retaliated by withholding all new funding from our public schools. And I think you mentioned this earlier, Roland, that we rank 44th in the nation in per student education funding here in Texas. Texas teachers are making less than they did 10 years ago when you adjust for inflation. And local property taxes are through the roof because our state is not doing its fair share of school funding. So we already had a school crisis, and now Greg Abbott is withholding all that funding as a retaliation against the lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who rejected his voucher scam. I want us to pause and realize what that means. The governor of Texas is sacrificing 5.5 million children in some political fight. He's using them as pawns in a negotiation, which I think should be on the pale. It should be unacceptable to everyone watching, regardless of what party you belong to. And then Greg Abbott took millions of dollars from these billionaires, Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilks, and Jeff Yass. He's an East Coast billionaire. He gave Greg Abbott one check for $6 million. It was the largest campaign contribution in Texas history.
So for folks who don't know, there's no limit in Texas for campaign contributions.
That's right.
And that same Jeff Yass is the one who started funding Trump, who has an equity stake, who wants to buy TikTok. And that's why Donald Trump changed his position on TikTok.
Exactly. You got to follow the money.
Yep.
If you're just listening to what the politicians are saying on TV, you're going to miss it. You've got to understand who is pulling the strings behind the scenes. And so that's why these names may be unfamiliar to you, but the first step is to get yourself educated. Look up Tim Dunn, look up Ferris Wilks, look up Jeff Yass, look up Betsy DeVos, because these are the power players. These are who Greg Abbott listens to. These are the billionaires that Dan Patrick listens to. So Greg Abbott got this $6 million check from Jeff Yass last year, and he used it to go on a revenge tour and went after these conservative, small-town, rural Republicans. Their only sin was standing by their public schools
and voting for their constituents.
Yes.
The people who elected them.
Right. And they vote for all of Greg Abbott's crazy bills. They're lockstep with Donald Trump and Greg Abbott. The only thing they did to anger the governor was voting for their constituents, voting to protect their local public schools. Because as you know, in these small towns around Texas, these small towns around the country, the local public school is the lifeblood of that community. It's the only pillar left standing.
Was it 6 or 7 and he defeated all except one? What was it?
Well, we actually had about 5 of them win re-election, which is remarkable. I mean, the fact they were facing this onslaught of big money and big lies, and 5 of these small-town Republicans still won their primaries.
Excuse me 1 second, Representative. For the people who are watching, I need y'all to understand, it wasn't just money. Patrick, Abbott, Ken Paxton, the AG, were going to their districts campaigning against conservative Republicans because he was public. I am going to punish you for voting against me in vouchers.
But here's the interesting part. When they went to the districts to campaign against these fellow Republicans, they didn't talk about vouchers because vouchers are unpopular.
Yep.
Right, especially in rural Texas. So instead, they lied about their immigration records. They said they were soft on the border and they wanted open borders, or this was the line they were using in all their mailers and TV ads. And so it worked on some of these guys, but some of them still won. And I think it's important to recognize that some of these rural Republicans sacrificed their political careers for this fight to save public education. This is not Democrats versus Republicans, because there are Republicans who care deeply about public schools. And so we've got to build this big coalition for this upcoming session if we stand a chance of beating vouchers again, which I think there is a chance if we stay united, if we stay focused, and if the people watching your program right now, if they take the time to call their state reps, call their state senators, call their lieutenant governor, and call their governor, and demand that they put students over billionaires, then I think we can stop this voucher scam once again.
Well, and this goes way beyond Texas, because this is Texas, this is Tennessee, this is North Carolina, and that's really what's going on here. And I don't think people understand these are a handful of billionaires who want to completely reshape not just public education, but the state. The billionaires you mentioned, they fund everything. They control Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick. They want to control Texas politics. These people are dangerous. These people are wrong, and they absolutely must be stopped. And this is the beauty that I keep saying to people. You might be a billionaire, but you only got one vote. And if more people vote against the interests of billionaires, they cannot win.
That's right. And we have to come together, right? They're intentionally trying to divide us because there are more of us than there are of them, right? So if we're all united, standing up for our interests, if we come together across race and culture and religion and urban and rural, if we all come together and stand up for ourselves against these wealthy special interests, then we'll win. And so that's why they have to keep us divided. That's why they've got to be scaring us about librarians grooming children and teachers indoctrinating kids and critical race theory. All this stuff is meant to keep us distracted, to keep us fighting each other. And so we're not fighting them. It's divide and conquer. This is the oldest strategy in the world. And so it's important that we resist that we come together, recognize that we all benefit from public schools. And last thing I'll say, Roland, I'm not defending where we're at in public education. Right. We have so much more work to do. I saw it firsthand. Our schools need so many more resources. Our teachers need to be paid like the professionals they are. We need better curriculum. We need more innovation. We need more experimentation. We need to customize for each student. We've got a lot of work to do. But none of those problems will get better with a private school voucher scam. In fact, all those problems will get worse if we take money out of our schools and give it to rich parents who don't need it.
And what people don't understand is those private schools, there's a reason they have small class sizes. There's a reason they have small enrollment. They're not going to all of a sudden say, sure, let's go from a class size of 12, 15, 17 to 30. So they're not going to create new seats. So they want to completely revamp this entire system for a handful of seats. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about, oh my goodness, 500,000. You don't hear the private schools saying, yeah, we're going to create 500,000 new seats at our schools to bring in these students. They're not doing that.
No, it'd be physically impossible. There aren't enough private schools, and there certainly aren't enough open seats in those private schools to accommodate anywhere close to the number of students. We have 5.5 million public school students in the state of Texas. There are maybe 100,000, probably less, open seats in private schools in Texas. So the whole thing is a scam, right? It sounds good at first when you hear the slogans, but then you read the fine print. Then you read the terms and conditions and you realize it's a ripoff. That's exactly what this is. And so we can't fall for the slogans we're hearing. We got to come together and improve our public school system and build in more choice in our public school system, more options, more variety. We could do all of that. But this voucher scam is going to cost $4 billion in the next biennium if it passes. That's $4 billion that are not going to strengthen and improve our public schools. That's $5 billion in the out years, 10 billion in the next decade, all going to wealthy parents who don't need this help.
And the people want to laugh. Hear me go to my iPad. This is the Texas Private School Association. He says that on their website, there are only 900 accredited private schools in Texas that serve 290,000 students. You just said there are more than 5 million kids in Texas public schools.
Math doesn't add up. And your viewers should know that not only are those 290,000 students now going to be taking out of our public school budget, but there's also about 750,000 homeschool students who will be eligible to take money out of the public education budget. So that's over 1 million new kids, either in homeschool or private school, who are now going to be taking dollars, tax dollars, out of that small pot that we have for our public schools in Texas. So it's madness. It's crazy town. I really don't understand how anyone could support this bill.
Well, whatever I can do to assist, we have the ability to, and we've done it numerous times, take our show on the road. We can broadcast anywhere around the country. So please let me know how we can help. This will be destructive to my home state of Texas, my home city of Houston. Nearly all of my family still lives there. My homestead is still there in the Dallas area. So you're right. When I had to write that property tax bill out, my parents live in my home, but I write that property tax bill out. So I know exactly what you're talking about, how that bill has jumped in a huge way over the last 5 to 10 years. So totally get it.
Vouchers will make that worse. Vouchers will raise your property taxes, because if the state is not doing its fair share, all the pressure to fund our schools falls on our local taxpayers. So if you think your property taxes are high, if you think your rent is high because you pay property taxes indirectly through your rent, it's only going to get worse if they start diverting tax dollars into these unaccountable private schools.
Indeed. Well, my producer, Carol, is going to be sure to give you my number. So however I can help, let me know.
Sir, thank you for covering this. Not enough people are talking about this.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Let's go to my panel here. This is the thing that we need to understand what's going on. And this threat is real. This threat is real. Tommy, literally, there are billionaires in America. They are trying, through MAGA, they are absolutely trying to control everything on the federal level. They are trying to control the state governments of North Carolina, Florida, Arkansas, Arizona, Texas, on and on and on. And people are getting played because they are creating these groups, trying to make it seem like it's grassroots support. No, this is a handful of hardcore right-wing theocracy, whatever you want, Christian fundamentalist billionaires who want to control the nation.
Yeah, it is. It's frightening, and what the representative was saying there. About the way that, I mean, they're getting ready to shut down or go after the Department of Education, and they're looting it is basically what they're doing. And the thing that struck me about their bill is they also have a thing in there where it's like $2,000 for families per child who are homeschooling. A lot of people are going to go, I'll take that, and then to help with the public school system. But this is the thing, everybody keeps saying, well, this is what people voted for, and it's really hard to argue because literally Elon Musk was out there giving away $1 million a day to get Trump elected. How can anybody act surprised by this? And so, yeah, I'm really at a loss. It's frustrating. I'm really at a loss for what we could do besides wait for the midterms. But this is the thing. Every day that this goes by, what are we in? We're in week 3 right now. Week 3. And look what's happened. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy. And I feel like even if people get around to wising up and getting off their asses and doing something about it, it's going to be too late. I mean, they got a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court now, and we're in week 3. And what's going to happen when Trump replaces 2 more justices this term? I feel like the opportunity, we're just going to be fighting this rear guard action forever. It's scary.
Julian, we talk about specifically there in Texas. Let me tell you how shameful Dan Patrick was. Dan Patrick tried, and they actually changed their approach because they realized how stupid it was. He tried to initially sell this voucher scam as a tax savings. So here's what they did, Julian. They said, of the money allocated per child, what we're going to do is we're going to give the parent 60% of that. And we're going to keep, for the state, 40%. So, hey, Texans, this is a tax savings. And then the idiots realize, well, the math don't work because we're taking 40% of the money, so that's going to be less money to the parent. Then they actually change it. That's how stupid these people are. Julian, you're on mute. Now you're off. Go.
I don't understand how these people go along with this stuff. In my mind, as I look at this, a long-term plan is for these oligarchs to have a labor force that is so uneducated that they can basically get over on them any kind of way.
Boom.
Dumb down the education system. And then dismantle unions, close libraries, eliminate DEI. They got all these people who know nothing. And know nothings are the people who can be easily led to do some of everything. Then they've got Project 2025 about the value of work. What they really is, we don't want a social support system for those who can't apply. So you'll end up with this large reserve army of dumb, poor people, and I don't mean to call them dumb, but uneducated people who can be led anywhere. This is the plan, is to basically have a population that is so satiated with nonsense, make America great again, that they will take anything in order to, quote, make America great again. And we see it happening. We see it happening time and again. And, I hate to go look at Hitler, but, that's where some of his stuff started, looking at curriculum, looking at indoctrinating. And what is MAGA more than indoctrination? It's very, very frustrating. And as the young man who you just had on said, the state senator, you're taking the money, and Tommy, I love your language, I'm going to steal it, looting the school system. That's what they're looting. And they're doing it legally because we've allowed it, because so many people, again, have been so infatuated by that man, so infatuated with his bravado that they're not looking at what it means to them. When you look at these things, what does this mean to you? Do you have kids, grandkids? Do you care that, and if this continues to be unchecked, we're really looking at creating this mass of people who can't think and will only be led by the ignorant.
And right there, Omakongo's right. They want dumb people. And they're literally fooling these MAGA idiots. They're fooling them. And I'm like, y'all going along with it? And then you have the people who know Donald Trump is full of crap, who are like, well, I'm voting for the policies. And so they don't care about the less fortunate. They don't care about education. They don't care about any of these things. All they care about is them, their pocketbooks, their interests. And as you heard the state rep, they want to completely upend the entire system for a small percentage of rich and upper middle class people for a handful of private school seats.
Absolutely. I mean, Trump said during his first campaign, remember, I love the poorly educated. He put it out there on Front Street for everybody and has lied about nothing. And when he talked about the voucher system, let's also add in Pennsylvania in terms of what they were trying to do up there with the PASS program as well. And I think it's really important that you as media partner with representatives because this is how we get the word out. I can't remember the last time I heard anything about vouchers on any network in any way, shape, or form. But the way that they try to sell this stuff to the people to get the support of common people or folks on the ground, they lie in every way, shape, or form to make them really think that they have a choice. And like you all said in the interview, a choice what to go to a school you can't afford, or a choice you don't have a car to get access to. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But they are not going to stop because, again, this is another place where they can, as we say, loot the educational system to get money for these tax cuts.
Yep.
And if the people don't demand this, then it's like we said, it may be too late. It's not too late now if we continue to partner and have strategic alliances like this. The representative needs to be on more networks. This needs to be a bigger issue. But many of these media folks don't care because maybe they got kids who will benefit from this program as well.
And there you go. And I've said this before, the big problem is when you start talking about issues like this, the TV anchors that you see, their kids are in private school. They're the ones who are making $2, $3, $4, $5 million. And I literally had somebody ask me, Roland, you're sitting here supporting, charter schools and what are you doing? I'm like, fool, what are you talking about? Went to public school my entire life. Elementary school, Clinton Park Elementary School, Pleasantville Elementary Magnet School, William Holland Middle School, Jack Yates High School, Magnet School of Communications, Texas A&M. I rode the school bus from the third grade all the way through in college. And so I'm like, don't give me that crap. And so I'm like, I don't want to hear it. And that's what you have going on here. So people need to understand what's going on. This is not just Texas. It is North Carolina. They have completely destroyed. The failure in Arizona is unbelievable because these billionaires ram it through with their donations. And so folks just to be aware of what's happening.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
There are a lot of people who, frankly, look, they don't consume information like we do. They don't talk to folks. They're not following this stuff. It's a lot of people like that. It's a lot of people who were like that growing up in Clinton Park in that community in Houston. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of those people. A lot of those people. And I say this all the time, okay? And this is the thing that because it goes to what Chris Toller was talking about. It goes to what Greg is talking about. What I need black folks watching to understand, and I need the black folks who are watching I need you to share this and spread this to folk who are from the age of 12 all the way up to the age of 40. I'm being specific for a reason. Let me say it again. I need everybody you got to spread this from 12 up to the age of 40. Here's why, Nola. And we don't want to think about this. This is February. My dad is 78 in April. My mom is 78 in November.
Amen.
My wife turns 60 today.
Happy birthday.
I'm 56.
Happy birthday.
So here's what I need people to understand. My parents' generation, they are tired. Mm-hmm. They are retiring. What a lot of us who are in our 50s and 40s and 30s and 20s don't understand is that that generation put in the work. Mm-hmm. They were the poll watchers. Mm-hmm. They were the precinct judges. They were the NAACP chapter presidents. They were the ones who showed up with picket signs. They were the ones who worked phone banks. They were the ones who put signs up in yards. They were the ones who started neighborhood clubs, civic clubs. They were the ones who went down to the city council meeting and the county commissioners meeting, who went to the state legislature, who would come to nation's capital calling on the elected representatives to do what was right. They were the ones who went to the committee meetings. They were the ones who were doing the work. These are the people who we don't know, who were not in the newspaper, who were not on television, who were not on radio, who was doing that groundwork. They were the ones who were going door to door in neighborhoods. They were the ones who were raising money for sickle cell anemia when there was a national telethon in the 70s and the 80s. They were the ones who were putting in all the work. They were the ones who were holding up the black community in the wake of the death of Dr. King in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And what we are seeing is the generation after them and the generation after them and the generation after them are not doing their part to hold up the black community, because you know what? A lot of us are 26 and 28 and 32 and 40 and 45, and we're saying today, I'm fucking tired. I'm tired. But you're not tired of going to brunch on Sunday.
Uh-oh, come on now.
You're not tired of taking multiple vacations a year.
That's right.
You're not tired of taking from the bank of black justice and constantly making withdrawals from people who were constantly making deposits. And now we sit in 2025 and you sit your simple Simon asses going, I don't know what's going on. I'm frustrated. I don't get it, because all you've done is take and take and take and take. You made no deposits. You made no investments. And now you are wondering why the bank account is so low of the Black Justice Fund, because your ass didn't make no deposits. And deposits are not made with your money. Deposits are made with your time and with your talent and with your presence, because it's real easy to be present, but you need to have some presence.
Ooh, okay, I got to follow that. All right, so this, to my mind, is this is about values, right? You know, I was a guest speaker this week. What's today? Is today Thursday? My goodness, this felt like a month. I was the guest speaker at AFGE's Civil Rights Luncheon the other day. And I told this story about how my mother and father met at LSU on the satellite campus in New Orleans. And one of the things that drew my mama to my daddy was the fact that he had this Black Panther mystique. Like, he would wear all black. You know, he had come back from Vietnam and he just had this swag, right? And so I grew up in a very civil rights, SNCC, student movement environment, right? I grew up in an all-black city. I went to private school, but it was a Black private school, and it was off the hook. You know, like our teachers were no joke. You know, Black history was all day, every day. So in terms of, you know, I agree with you about, I'm going to use the word apathy again, in terms of what we're seeing from generations that get younger and younger. But also, you got to wonder what was happening in the homes, too. It makes me remember this conversation with Obama about this post-racial America. And I remember being one of those people on the other side saying there is no such thing. And as I still sit here, still, you know, having the kind of prophetic eye to be able to see beyond the veneer, at that time, people didn't want to hear that. So we are having the people that, yes, all they want to think about is going to brunch with the grass on the walls. I wish we lived in a country where all we could think about is going to brunch with the grass on the walls. But that is not the reality of the country in which we live in. So, you know, when I engage with young people, even when I ask my own students, how you feeling, how you doing with everything that's going on? We're right in the middle of things. We're in DC. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to engage in the messy politics. They just kind of want to do their work, put their head down and hope that things will work out. Right. And I think that's kind of like the overall feeling with a certain age group is to put your head down and think and hope that things will work out. Because to your point, Roland, they have always worked out since they've been on the planet because of the people that came before them, the sweat equity that came before them, the people that were put in jail before them, the people like my father. He had to fight for years to get an honorable discharge from the Air Force because he got into it with a very, very racist commanding officer in the Air Force. And so it's these very real things. My grandfather having to escape rural Louisiana because him and his twin was about to get hanged. People aren't coming from those narratives any longer, and they just want to go to brunch with the grass on the walls. And I'm not going to sit here in front and be like, I don't like doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish we lived in the country where that's all we could focus on. I just want people to be engaged and understand what's at stake. And because I do spend a lot of time with young folks, that exhaustion, they're thinking about all the things that they had to go through with school shootings and all these things. And the last thing that I want to do is play oppression, Olympics about the things that I had to go through as a 40-something or the things that parents and grandparents had to go through. For them, they live in a country where they shouldn't have to go through those things. And that's the lens. They are thinking I should not have to experience any of those things because the people that came before me told me that I was living in a post-racial America. My parents told me when they put me in that white private school that I was living in a post-racial America. And all I had to do was focus on getting into Harvard or getting into Howard so I can go to brunch with the grass on the wall. So I want to say two quick things. I am really worried about this Trump over America moment that we are living in. It is really disheartening to me as, someone, I'm not just a political scientist, just because that's what my degree says. I really am a student of history and politics. And when I think about those brave Republicans regarding Richard Nixon, you know what I figured out today, Roland and Greg, as the historian here? They weren't brave. You know what it was? The evidence was irrefutable. That has been the problem from day one with Trump. The things in which the multiple crimes that he's committed, it's been too challenging and too difficult to explain to the public. What Nixon did, that man was on tape. It's that. There has not been a situation yet where the case has been brought to the American public that was irrefutable. That's one thing. And the last thing that I will say to Reese's point about misinformation and disinformation, I firmly believe that conspiracy theories is the philosophy for the lazy. It is so easy. It is so seductive to believe in conspiracy theories is true because it's too hard to know the truth. And that's all I have to say.
Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You heard what we just talked about there. Folks, I can't reiterate this enough. Listen to me clearly. I cannot reiterate this enough. When you've got technology companies running scared, when you've got legacy media not doing their job, when you've got black-owned media that is disintegrated, now is more than ever for us to have independent media that cares about the truth, that is willing to say what needs to be said. So when you support Roland Martin Unfiltered, this show, when you support the Black Star Network, you're not just supporting me, you're supporting the other shows. Our goal is to add 2 more shows this year. We want additional shows. We want more weekly and daily shows because we want to be able to speak truth to power. We want to be able to say what is necessary where other people are scared. And when you are scared, when you're looking over your shoulder, oh my God, that advertising contract is not going to come in. Well, guess what? A lot of these major ad agencies, they're not even supporting us anyway. In 6 years of doing this show, Group M hasn't done a damn thing with us. Publicis hasn't done anything with us. You've got Horizon, you've got all of these folks, they haven't done jack. And so we are calling it like we see it.
and we're speaking truth. And unlike some of these other so-called progressives and people who believe in truth, I'm not running around trying to kiss MAGA ass and kiss Trump's ass. I won't be going to Mar-a-Lago, not for a damn thing. And so this is about us being able to speak truth. So when you support this show and this network with your resources, that is exactly what is happening, because we are trying to build something that is bigger and broader, and actually it has the courage to say what needs to be said, even when it makes other folk uncomfortable. If you want to contribute giving Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. This is it right here. And if you are listening, simply go to blackstarnetwork.com to check it out. Also, if you want to see your checking money order, some of y'all old school, we understand that. See your checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And again, folks, we've got some 4 million social media followers. If only 20,000 of our fans contribute at least $50 each, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, that's $1 million. It allows us to be able to continue to build, to add these shows and do the work that's required. So your support is needed. So please join our Bring the Funk fan club today. If you've not already joined, if you have given to us in the past, please renew your commitment, because it's important that we support Black-owned media, because Black-owned media matters.